Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Jason Hartman, who is the founder of the Hartman Media Company and jasonhartman.com. Welcome to the program, Jason.
Mike, it's great to be with you.
Hey, so you've got a vast background in entrepreneurship and investing in finance and real estate, and you run a podcast, so kind of catch us up to speed on your background and what your focus is in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the real estate business since I was 19 years old. I got my real estate license my first year of college, and I always was very interested in real estate as an investment. And after several years of doing it, I believe that it's the most historically proven asset class in the world. But I've combined it with entrepreneurship and with my media business, and it's been a good ride and a good combination. I sold my traditional real estate company to Coldwell Banker about 11 years ago, and then I started a real estate investment company that helps people build real estate portfolios nationwide. And about a year into that business, I started podcasting, and I've been podcasting ever since. We've got 21 different shows in my podcast network with over 3,000 episodes now.
Wow. And so obviously you do not record and run all of those podcasts. You have the network, and then other people run their shows off of that.
Well, you may not believe this, but yes, I actually do.
You did all 3,000 shows yourself?
Yes.
Wow.
But remember, that's over the course of 11 years, so it's not like it happened overnight.
Right, but
I have taken on board a guest host for one of my shows, the Longevity and Biohacking Show, which has just kind of been a personal interest area of mine. But that's the only one where I've got a guest host.
Yeah, but guest host still means you're on the show and doing it as well.
Yes, I do some of the episodes, and he does other episodes. Absolutely.
Sure. So let's talk about this regarding entrepreneurialism and branding and getting your name out there and podcasting. How important would you say that it is for someone to have a podcast? And we could talk for hours on that, I know, but I want to lead that into what you saw 3,000 episodes in compared to 3 episodes or 30 episodes in, because I'm sure that with anything, you didn't knock it out of the park day one. You didn't have new clients or new strategic alliances clamoring at your door after the 4th episode. It takes some time. So can you speak to what this has done for your brand?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a great question. Let me just back up a little bit from that, though, and give you my overall view of something that I want you to understand, and that is the concept of what I frequently say this on my shows. I say that it's an amazing time to be alive, and it really is. For entrepreneurs, Mike, this is a phenomenal time, and for so many reasons, but not the least of which is that it's very inexpensive to start a business nowadays with all the tools and technologies we have available to us. And if you look back through history and you look at the concept of branding, or especially personal branding throughout history, which they didn't even call it that in the old days, but that's really what they were doing. And initially, as civilization evolved, and I'm going to go way back here, okay, for just a quick moment, as civilization, evolved, in the beginning, the people who had influence, who had power, who had brands, if you will, even maybe back to the days of King Tut, were the pharaohs, the royalty, and then the religious leaders. And then many, many hundreds of years through time, it became, the religion held sway for a long time in there. And then during the Industrial Revolution, it really became corporate leaders and corporations that had all the power, and governments kind of concurrent with that a little bit. And really the first personally branded corporate person, in my view, was Lee Iacocca. when he rescued Chrysler many decades ago, and really put his face on the company, and that was kind of an interesting thing. But throughout all of those times, you'd either have to have a lucky, fortunate birth, or somehow have become a religious leader, or been in power in government, or been lucky enough to rise to the top of a large company. But what happened after that, and why I find podcasting so interesting as a media, is that many personal brands now, there's no gatekeeper anymore. Everybody has access, and really equal access, to an audience nowadays. And they can do that for an incredibly low cost. And so podcasting is one way to do that, but certainly before podcasting, there was blogging, there were just traditional websites, email marketing, lots of other ways to reach an audience. And podcasting just so happens to be one of my primary ways, but many people do it through the other ways that I mentioned. And that's one of the reasons it is such an amazing time to be alive, because everybody listening to your show, for example, has this access. And there's no particular gatekeeper. The marketplace gets to decide the value of their content or their message, not some executive, some book publisher, some literary agent, some radio station manager, or some television station manager. Nowadays, you can go right to the marketplace directly, and the market will decide on the value of somebody's message. And with the concept of the long tail meaning that we can reach a very narrow audience with very specific interest and specific keywords that they would search online, really enables people to be very famous or be a big fish in a small pond, if you will. And that pond doesn't have to be very big. It could just be an audience of 500 or 1,000 people who are avid consumers of one's content and one's message. I would even
interject that you could be a big fish in a big pond because of the long tail. And here's my approach. Have you ever read or heard of the concept ZMOT, Z-M-O-T, the zero moment of truth?
No, I haven't. Tell me about it.
It's a good read. You should Google it, and it's written. It's a free ebook download online, written by an ex-Google executive. And the whole concept is, back in the olden days, like you were just talking about, you go into a store, appliance store, car dealership, and chat and talk to people and ask questions about the product. They'd give you the product brochures. You'd go home, and all of that now started your process. And then the moment of truth was when you bought that thing and saw whether it worked or not. Well, now the zero moment of truth is when you have this need, this itch, this problem, let's say, whatever that may be, and you go to the internet, go online and Google it, and you start saying, how come my printer won't print or whatever? And now you see all these people that have put content out there, and let's say that you were a printer repair person, which is hypothetical, because most of the time these days you just go buy a new little printer. But
or we're not even printing at all. But yes.
Well, correct. There's another whole story. But if you created a blog post, podcast, some other piece of online real estate, pun intended, and you made the title of that episode or blog post long tail enough that you maybe even had the model of a printer, or you had printer repair, or Joe Smith discusses why my printer won't print, and now all of a sudden Google is indexing that, and when you're searching it, people are coming across it, and so now they're doing all this preliminary research, and then they go into that car dealership or appliance shop very well educated, and if you are the one, the authority, the influencer, the expert that has put that content out there, and this person was like, hallelujah, look, there's a I'm going to listen to this podcast and you learn, you're then the one they're choosing. So I really agree with you 10,000%. And too many times people don't realize that. They think you've got to be the big brand to get out there. But so often, if you do these things the right way, you're getting in front of that unique laser-targeted traffic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's an amazing time to be alive. There's only one part of that equation that you mentioned, and that was a really interesting way that you brought that about. One part of that really bothers me, and you might even guess what it is. It's Google, because that company has way too much power and can determine one's livelihood to far too big a degree. But that might lead us down another tangent.
Yeah, but and yeah, without getting in a tangent, but the point is, you can rail up against anything and rage against the machine about any topic, but if it's something new and here today, gone tomorrow, yeah, you can take a stand against that. But there's some things you're just not going to take a stand against. You just gotta, if you can't beat them, join them, and so play the game, and then just learn how to play the game the right way. And but you said something earlier interesting about way back in the old days and maybe even biblical times. Think of it like sitting in the gate of the city. Well, the people that were quote unquote sitting at the gate of the city were the dignitaries and the respected people. And you think about the gatekeeper, the person keeping you from the true decision maker. Well, how can we these days be seen as that brand, that personal brand, that elevated brand? Well, it's easier than ever. You don't need to go out and get $10,000 worth of equipment and start your own radio show podcast. You can pick up the phone. And I would say, without getting into a lot of detail, do you agree with, or what are some tips on getting started with podcasting without having to get software and equipment and all of that kind of thing just to kind of get your feet wet?
Well, it's quite easy. I mean, you can set up a podcast hosting account for $5. I'm sure anybody listening can afford that, and you can buy a cheap microphone or even do what I do. And as a quote unquote professional podcaster, sometimes I record podcasts on my Apple earbuds that were included with my iPhone. And if you're in a decent room, they don't sound too bad. And, it's just a matter of reaching out to guests and interviewing them on their area of expertise. A lot of my shows are monologue shows where I just ramble on myself, and oddly, my listeners say they actually like those quite a bit. But you can have whatever format suits you, or blend different formats together. And I just think if nothing else, even if you never develop a real audience, there are some side benefits. It helps you, the content creator, clarify your thoughts to some extent and refine your own message. And some people do that very well by writing. It's been said many times that, if you write something down, it helps you distill your thoughts and capture them and express them in a better way. And I believe that is true. And the same is true with podcasting as well, and audio content and video content.
Yeah, and I was just going to bring up, you can make things way more complicated than they need to be, so keep it simple. But there's also the element of you've seen some shows that are like the video, not podcaster, but something to the effect of, let's jump on a video Skype or a video Zoom and let's do a live video chat. And I think those are wonderful if that's what you like to do. But here's what I would say. The barrier to entry and being consistent with that can get a whole lot harder, because if you as a thought leader are trying to book interviews with people and say, make sure you have a webcam and your hair combed and good lighting and good microphone, you're going to have so much more trouble. Whereas if you said, jump on this phone number and dial in and let's have a conversation, and you're done in 20 minutes.
I agree. Keeping it simple is very important. I'm a huge fan of audio content. I love the portability of it as a consumer of it. When people send me videos to watch, a lot of times I just never watch them. I don't have time. But audio content, it's portable. It can go with me. It can go in the car. It can go to the gym. It can go for a walk with the dog. I think it's honestly a better format, and it's much easier to produce and consume.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, Les Brown is known for saying jump and grow your wings on the way down. So, get started, get doing some things, and then down the road tweak and improve this and improve that. But I really think this is another aspect we haven't talked about, but is a big, big benefit of like interviews or podcasting. If you asked someone, write me a 5-page synopsis on what you do in whatever field or what your company's competitive advantage is, go. I think all of a sudden there's this disconnect between their head and their hands, and it's like, ugh, I don't know, I can't, and they're typing on the keyboard, and they just get brain locked. But if you said, jump on the phone, I want to ask you a few questions about whatever, and I want to interview about whatever, now all of a sudden they're just freed up. And I've seen it time and time and time again where you ask a question, then go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, and they are just going to hell, and you can just feel them opening up. Is that what you find as well when you're interviewing your guests?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there's one other concept I want to share with people. Understand who your customer is. For example, when I started podcasting 11 years ago for my real estate investment business, I believe I understood who my customer was, and my customer is the listener. And some podcasters will say, well, this content is free. They don't have to pay for it. And I would argue, yes, they do have to pay for it. They have to pay for it with their most valuable resource, their time. And so you're really there to serve that listener, not to serve the guest. Certainly let the guests get their message out and let them share their website or whatever their cause is or whatever they want to share with the audience. But don't be afraid to, disagree with your guests or ask them some hard questions and just try and deliver value for your audience.
Yeah, because everyone's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me? And I think, people spend time and do things based on what they're going to get out of it. And sorry, but that's just the way it is. Now, maybe there's a little principle of reciprocity that kicked in, like, oh, you came and saw my kid play soccer, I better go see your kid play next week as well. But the point is, what's in it for that person when they give you their time and their attention, and that's where that compelling content needs to be. And you need to be that educator and advocate for your listener. And sometimes it is just like a fly on the wall listening to a brainstorming mastermind session, kind of like what we're doing here. We're not selling anything. We're just talking about, here's a tip and here's a tidbit. So with that in mind, let's wrap up with what is the best way that listeners can find out more about your network and what shows you have going on and learn a little bit more about your media group.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website for media company is Hartman. That's HARTMAN media.com, Hartman.com. And for my real estate investment company, it's just my name, JasonHartman.com.
Excellent. Well, Jason, it was really great getting to know you and having a wonderful conversation, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.